I have spent the last 11 years of my life at war with time. To be honest, I'm not sure where this battle really started. There was no first shot in this, but for as long as I can remember, I've been impatient, hurried, anxious, and in general, frustrated. This may sound like you, I'm not sure. I feel like everyone's relationship with time is unique, but I do know that we all have some relationship. And from what I've heard, it's a pretty negative one. This might sound weird coming from a medical student. We're supposed to be smart, figured out, and confident individuals. For the most part, I believe I fit this description, but I also believe my concept of time, my relationship with it, has been completely broken. I can't predict how long it'll take me to finish a task. I have no concept of what I can reasonably get done in a day. While I've been studying the ins and outs of human anatomy and physiology for the past 3 years, my understanding of time has evolved, and I've come to some really impactful conclusions, 4 of which I'll share here. This is actually advice I give to younger medical students in some of our conversations. It's advice I really internalized my first year of medical school. Bright-eyed and excited to be here, I was trying to shadow doctors, study, make friends, go on dates, and get involved with research projects. My idea was to cram in everything at once and early so that I'd be in good shape when residency applications came around. I'm sure this is a sentiment many students can relate to. I'm sure many people in general can relate to this idea of front-loading. My perception was completely warped, and the rules that I used to be successful in college were no longer applicable in medical school. I found myself staring at my watch when classes dragged on. I ended workouts early to study. When I was with friends, I wasn't fully present because I was thinking about the next thing. And once when I was shadowing, I walked out before a facial reconstruction, which was a case I wanted to see for 2 weeks because I realized I hadn't prepped correctly for immunology exams. And research? Well, thankfully I didn't start research in my first semester because it would have been a complete disaster. Looking back, I had way too much going on. I knew what I had to do, but I didn't realize when I needed to do it. Ultimately, this came down to priorities. I had too many and I couldn't rank them. I still struggle with this. Repairing a relationship with time is an iterative process, I'm sure, but I definitely learned my lesson here. I lived by the understanding that time is our most limited resource. We hear this a lot in media, and in some respect, I think it's true. I think in a broad sense, we are limited by time. But I think we can elevate the conversation. I think the real limited currency is skill, especially for someone in their mid-20s like myself. I've tried to recenter my 20s by focusing on the skills I can develop in this time. I thank my dad for this. He always told me, no one wants someone who isn't skilled, and I think I finally understand what that means. As a hopeful physician, I believe my main advantages would be an ability to understand medical science, convey the understanding, make decisions, and ultimately connect with people. I know, however, that there are things that medical training neglects, and I don't want to be limited by what I don't know in those fields. It's tempting to try and learn everything in some respect, but when you realize that the world really prioritizes rewarding people who are amazing at a few things rather than proficient at many things, it changes your understanding of what you need to do. It's helped take my anxieties about missing out on certain aspects of life and simplified it into what I need to do right now and what I can do later. I know that residency will be tough and time will be extremely limited then, and I know that after residency, life may get easier. And while in my 30s and 40s I may not be limited by time, I would be limited by skills if I didn't take the time to develop them properly now. It's an evolving concept for sure, but knowing that I need to focus on a few things right now has taken the anxiety of missing out and minimized it to the point where I can actually get through what I need to get through on a daily basis. It's made this research year a lot more focused, and it's made me more confident in what I want to do after this research year is over. The book that really scared me and fractured my relationship with time further was Paul Kalanithe's When Breath Becomes Air. An inspiration to hopeful surgeons everywhere? Maybe, but to me it was a cautionary tale. It broke my passion for medical school for a while. I was confronted with my mortality and it scared me. I think I spent the first 3 years of medical school as a grump because of this dumb book. I no longer felt committed to what I had worked so hard for, to spend my life in training only to die before I can do something meaningful with it. Of all of my hangups with time, this is definitely the biggest one. I think something that I've changed recently that has helped is trying to focus on something to find meaningful every day. I think that's all any of us can do. I don't think it's easy, but I do think it is accessible. To look back every day and to be able to find 1 or 2 things that we enjoyed, found meaning in, learned, or appreciated. It helps me know that I'm not just waiting to become and reaffirms that I'm becoming day by day. My mom always told me that if I don't do things right the first time, I'll actually spend more time doing them again. I've learned to slow things down, get the little details right, and really understand the process well. I'm still learning how to enact this in my daily life because my instant gratification lifestyle fights really hard to get things done quickly instead of correctly. This one isn't a big revelation. Maybe none of these really are, but I do feel like they're really hard to enact. I think our brains fight constantly to fall back into old patterns. I'm not sure who's winning this war with time. I'm not sure if it really ever ends, but I do know that if you are also feeling like the way I've described, you might also find value in what I've discussed. What is your relationship with time like? Is it a positive one? How do you cope with the anxiety of running out of time? Is it something you deal with? Let me know in the comments what your experience has been like, what you've learned, how you've dealt. As always, I'm happy to discuss, and see you next time.